Well, it's another Friday afternoon, and well, I'd like to say it's a beautiful Friday afternoon after work, but honestly, it's just kind of a gray, overcast, gloomy, slightly damp Friday afternoon. But it's not snowing, it's not actively downpouring, and we've got some outside projects to finish up here before it gets dark, which is not too far off. So I figure I'd bring y'all along on today, and then probably also tomorrow is a full day of everything ranging from uh, stuff with the trailer, property updates, F-150 updates, LS Vicci updates, should have some of that, camper, get some work done on the truck camper. Just a whole bunch planned, all for one day, hopefully. We'll see, I don't know. But tonight's project, I want to get my fence cut down. Just demolish it. Gone. No, not really. It's just kind of in the way. Let me show you what we're working with. So this property of mine here is just split up into a bunch of sections. We got like a triangle yard up there that's fully fenced in still. Now, if I ever got a dog, that'd be super great. Do I see that happening anytime soon? No. We have a backyard here that goes to the back track, and now that's got a couple openings so you can walk and drive to the outside and whatnot without gates, so that's not truly fenced in. And then wraps up here to the back corner of the barn, and then we've got this front pasture here, we'll call it, that wraps up to the house, and then back to the other side. Now the issue is, if you see the width of the truck, and also the width of the trailer, between these gates here is pretty tight. And then the only parking spot really when you have them hooked up is straight back, which blocks the door of the barn. And also, if you put big dumb wide wheels on the truck like maybe I did, you can't really cock this thing off sideways until about right here. And this took about a 3-point maneuver to get the trailer as I did here. So really what I'd like to do is just get rid of this entire section of fence back to that corner. And then we'll still leave going to the barn there, so that way the back is closed off per se. It's also nice to have a fence around when there's a field, 5 foot away, because while the farmer's going to try and creep in, he's not going to creep in any farther in the fence. So we're going to keep it up the rest of the way around the property. But by getting rid of this, and then also this first section right here, we should be able to gain a lot more mobility on where I can put the trailer in here, and also not hit my mirror. I've done that a time or two. And so that might leave you wondering, well, why wouldn't you get rid of this section going up to the house here? Couple of reasons. For one, the yard on this side of the fence, kind of shabby, kind of not great. Yard on that side, front yard, super great, super nice and striped, so we're going to keep it that way. Also, this is my runoff path for my washer. I know that sounds really odd, that doesn't go to the septic or some underground plumbing. It's a 1902 farmhouse. The washer drain goes out in the wall and onto the ground. So that's why this is all dead right here. Clothes cleaner, bleach, stuff like that. So we're going to keep that on the fence line path and run down to the driveway, because, why would I take the time to tie that into my plumbing? I'm not going to. And then also, if we pan this way slightly, you'll see that over here is all my vehicle parking. And if I got rid of that fence up there, it would kind of make them seem like they're in the front yard. They're not. They're technically behind the house. But it creates like this cutoff point, right? Same with like my storage area. If y'all can see over here, is tucked in a corner. Now, if I got rid of that fence there, it would just make it seem like all that junk was in the middle of the yard. But since there's a fence there, since there's a corner there, it's tucked away in a corner. It's kind of like cleaning up your room, throwing everything in the closet. Is it any cleaner? Not really, but it appears that way. So that is my reasoning for keeping that section of the fence. But enough talking here. We're going to get to cutting. The game plan is to just slice right down the poles and get the wire off. And then I'm going to go ahead and scrap that. Finally going to scrap yard tomorrow anyways. That's also on the list. So we can get that in my truck first and lay it flat. And then tomorrow I'm going to pick up my uncle's tractor with a loader bucket. Hopefully just wrap a chain around these poles, straighten them a little bit, and take them up out of the ground. Now when that plan doesn't work, I don't have a backup plan yet. I'm just hoping that plan works. Well, I'm now starting to realize how much bigger this is going to make this front yard look. And also, I should be able to mow this yard east and west now instead of the short way I've been doing. With that center fence in there, it didn't make much sense to ever mow this way. But now I should be able to do that, so that'll be pretty cool too. So I'll go ahead and get the black truck back down here and get all this loaded up first, and then pile all these scrap from my F-150 into that truck, because for some reason I turned the F-150 into a storage unit a couple months ago. Also, don't really know why I didn't pick them up as I backed down along here, but we're not going to question that. I have lied about the weather by saying it's not raining. It is now actively turned into a more than a mist. It is now starting to rain. Luckily, keep one of these underneath the old back seat of the truck at all times. If y'all don't, I'd recommend you do. They come in handy. If you're wondering, it's the old Frog Tog brand from Meijer, Walmart, somewhere or another. Brian, if you're watching this, which I'm sure you are at some point, I know you got a kid now and you're just chilling at home doing a whole bunch of dad stuff. Fuck your Bucky's brand unlabeled raincoat. Frog Tog on top, brother.
Alrighty.
Thought you weren't going to wear one of those.
Well, what happened was I was walking and the wind blew really hard and this landed on me.
Oh, you just couldn't buy one. You had to buy one, but it lands on you.
You know, I'll wear it.
Dude's over here giving me shit from Frog Tog, so we got this fucking off-brand Bucky's.
Bucky's is not an off-brand. Bucky's is the brand.
You got a label? I got a label.
Mine says "fuck your Frog Tog" right on it.
Well, a guy just went and did a little check on the old radar scanner, and she ain't stopping anytime soon. So, we're breaking out the pants. I guess while we're in the barn, check out my tire rack. I got that organized a week or two ago. Pretty much like 90% 5x4.5, but you know, got truck spares. Got some new wheels for the Explorer. Y'all haven't seen those yet with good tires. I decided to get them on, but currently the Explorer is still in tie-down mode for the camper, so it doesn't blow away. Got some other spares for Honda Explorer, stock wheels for Vicci over here, and then just a bunch of burners and spare tires mainly up top. There's not a bunch of rims and wheels up top, mainly just tires. But quite the collection. Also just noticing these lights on the floor right here. We're in a box somewhere in this back corner. And it makes me question why a raccoon would want marker lights for a 72. Like, brother, leave my stuff alone. This is another project. I really need to get all this stuff like just washed up someday. And in my house, I need to put a bunch of shelves up. Like, I got plastics for all my bites out here. Good plastics, but just no good spot to put them. They just moseyed on out here. And every now and then, an animal will just get an itch to get something out off the shelf and check it out a little more in the middle of the barn for some reason or another. And, you know, they do what they want around here. So, that's another project. Get this barn cleaned up someday and get a door on it. I've got a single bay garage door I'd like to retrofit on the front of this. And it'll probably be like a more of a swing open style than anything else. But, yeah, a bunch of projects to do around here. So I'm going to let y'all go ahead and watch from not out in the rain as we transfer my storage unit of a race truck into the black truck there. I started out with just a couple pieces of scrap to get out of my garage, and then that turned into a couple more pieces in the backyard, and that turned into the scrap bed, you know? And yeah, now I got to move it all back out because I'm going to go race that thing in a couple weeks. Well, don't want to be doing it with a bed full of scrap. Well, it's a hair bit later. I got some dinner at me and did some other house stuff while I was in there. And then we are back out in the garage now working on my girl Vicci. And, well, we are pretty much buttoning up the interior. We got the passenger bucket seat here with the newly fabricated brackets and fresh paint from last night. Actually, it's still a bit tacky, but it's pretty much ready to go back in. However, I don't have any other parts to put on this car. The steering shafts won't be here until midday tomorrow, more than likely. So I think I'm going to go ahead and like detail the inside because the heat's on the garage and the night's still young, and why not? So we're going to clean the interior up before I put the seat in, and then also I think I'm going to redo a dash panel in here as well. And what I mean by that is this panel here has my ECU mounted on the back side of it and just comes off of these two bolts. But I had this sticker pretty well. I liked the red and white look I had going on. And then I had a camera mount on here, and I ended up like duct taping it because it kept falling off. It was a suction cup one. It was great until it was in the sun. And then I duct taped it, and then that pulled my sticker off, and now it just looks trashy. So we're going to do that and then dig through my sticker pile up there and go ahead and get a new theme on here and get that set back in, because why not? Third thing I just thought of is y'all on YouTube have not seen the harness bar or harnesses in this car yet. One thing I struggle with on social media, going from only posting on what used to be Snapchat and then TikTok, and then it grew to Facebook, and now I'm trying to make YouTube videos, is keeping track of where I posted what. Because throughout the week I make a bunch of small updates on TikTok and whatnot and YouTube Shorts, but I never film horizontally for my YouTube videos. So let me show you what was new this week on Vicci. So under the hood we have a new power steering pump, power steering pulley, and belt, and it's all in alignment now. The last year or so I had that out of alignment, and the pulley was out by one rib, so it would slice a couple belts. I only went through two, but you know, that's two more than I probably needed to. Also went ahead and got new exhaust gaskets in here on the inside of the headers. Those are both leaking pretty bad, probably because of the fact that this thing's been overheating a whole bunch, and neither the head or the exhaust manifold was decked when I put them on, so they're putting in some work on some probably uneven surfaces. Went ahead and got the exhaust bolted up underneath the car, and then this is just a 3-inch exhaust straight out, or straight down I should say, and then outside 90 here. There's no crossover, X-pipe, H-pipe, no nothing like that. Just true dual all the way back with some cheap Amazon mufflers about 3/4 of the way back there. And then, like I said, we were waiting on the steering shafts. I ended up pulling both the inner and outer, or upper and lower, whatever you want to call them. This car's always had some bad steering, and then it didn't help when I ran it for almost 2 years with no power steering when I first got the swap done, and was just beating it up off-road. The inner shaft is like a 4-prong kind of deal. It slides in and out of itself. That had a bunch of play in it, which translated to a bunch of play out on the big wheel. And then the U-joints on the lower were also not the best. So we have new ones showing up, hopefully, like I said, tomorrow, Saturday, whenever this gets posted, I don't know. But tonight is Friday night, and we don't have them yet. So moving to the interior is the biggest change. So last year, I went ahead and replaced the floorboards. Pretty much the entire back driver's side floorboard is new. I did some patch panels up here, and then I believe a couple patch panels back on the passenger side rear floorboard as well. The front passenger floorboard I did when I originally got this car like 6 years ago. So there's a bunch of patch panels in. That front one is the worst. That was my first one. The ones I did last year I'm actually very proud of. They fit well, they're sealed up very well, and painted and rust protected, and I think they're going to last a really long time. Then also went ahead and threw some sound deadening insulation down just to help with temps in the car, and also just the sound itself. You don't get a lot of, tinging and, rocks coming off the floorboard and stuff like that. Just overall feels like a better car. I am super glad when I got this that I didn't do like I did on every other cheap race car and gut the entire thing. I did pull the vinyl floor and whatnot out in the carpet because it was a K9 unit and there's dog hair and it was damp and it was just disgusting. It was the main reason that came out. But apart from that, everything else stayed intact apart from the dash. It never got hooked up to all the engine stuff anyway, so it never worked. And my plan is to put a digital dash in there eventually. But everything else is pretty much intact. Apart from the rear deck, that did come out, and there is a firewall behind the seat. It's not the best thing, but it is a full sheet of metal that is sealed off behind that seat. Had to do that back when I was doing like Cletus's burnout contest and whatnot. This car never actually got teched. I will say this, maybe it's changed in the last couple years, but I went through and did everything by the books for Cletus's burnout contest, and they never even look at the car. They just come up, write a number on there, and say, "Hey, you got all your safety stuff?" You're like, "Yeah." One year, I'll be honest, I forgot my neck brace and my pants, my fire pants. I just had a jacket on, and they never said a word about it. But anyways, enough rambling about the past of this car. Like I said, anyways, the floor is pretty much fixed up now. We got the driver's side bucket seat put in last fall for one last burnout contest I did, but I never got around to putting a harness in because I didn't have a harness bar. So this week, we put a Amazon harness bar in here, got the extinguisher mounted up in the middle, and then 50 cal harnesses. And one thing I've learned, I've got a 50 cal harness in my Honda Circle Track car. It is a true 4-point, and they are stitched on the bottom here, from here to the lap belt, which A, makes it a little bit harder to get into, B, is less comfortable for me because it's I'm a smaller frame guy, I guess was the wording I'll use. So the belts kind of run right down the outside of me versus these all clamp right in the center. So they kind of run more down my chest. My buddy's got these same belts in his F1 that y'all have probably seen on here at LS Fest and a couple other events. And that is where, I tried these out and really liked them and decided to put them in Vicci. Red Mountain Burley's F1. How's this going to go, bud? Then back here, this bracket runs across, just a little bit of modification, but nothing horrible. You got to bend these brackets in just a hair and then mount them to the upper. I tried going to the lower here first, but it is just too wide, and I had these at like a 45 to where this was touching, and it was still too wide to grab. So we went to the upper with a washer, no big deal there. And then these kickers are adjusted all the way in, so this is the shortest it will go, which kind of sucks because I wish this bar would have dropped down just a hair more and back to get adjustability out of the seat and be able to slide back a hair more. But it's comfortable enough for me. Just bigger, taller guys might have an issue in here now. And then this is bolted to the factory spot where the bottom seatbelt coil would have been with the spring mechanism. So the game plan is I still have all the B-pillar panels. I want to notch them as cleanly as I can and get them back in, and hopefully this will look super factory, and you'll just see the bar come out of the pillar, and that's it. So that leads us right back to where we were, that one of the last things to do on the interior here is just to clean it up and detail it. She's super dusty. She was dirty from last year, and then my dumbass also left a window down when I was grinding down the rear end of this car. So there's a bunch of rust dust in here. That's all like the reddish brown dirt you see is rusty metal dust, which takes a little more to get off here. So we're going to get to detailing this old girl out. So here's what we're working with currently on this dash panel. This is just a piece of steel that I measured and cut out. I forget what it's from, to be honest with you. But it surprisingly fit pretty well. And then the terminator itself is just bolted to the back. Plenty of room up top. You can get all the plugs in and whatnot. And then what I really like about this is, A, it hides everything on the dash. But just these two bolts actually hold to the dash. And I just keep those finger tight. So you can take those two off, prop it forward, unplug 3 plugs, and have your ECU out. And also all the fuses and everything else are right behind the dash there. So if ever I have an issue in this car, I also have to take this whole panel off and the vent here to be able to get it out, but those just pop out on clips anyways. Within about 45 seconds you can have this part, and then you can get to your fuses, relays, and all the rest of your wiring harness is right here and easily accessible, and pretty well hidden apart from down here. Alright, so back to what we were doing. You want the highest quality paint, some Lowe's $2.99 gloss white is what we're using here. It's not great. Honestly, 95% of this is going to be stickered up. Also, make sure you put some protection over your fancy ECU back here. A dirty shop rag will do. And then get to work. Also helps if you balance can and can. Tonight is watermelon margarita tequila cocktail, a carbless, which is a very expensive, decent tasting, but I bought one case of these. This is my last one. Lasts me like a month or so, but after this is back to probably teas. Also, I just realized I probably look like a doofus with my jeans rolled up, but they were sopping wet from being outside doing that fence earlier, and now I look like Huckleberry Finn. Also, I lied to y'all when I said I didn't know where this piece of metal came from. The sticker underneath my other stickers did give it away, and I then remembered it was the bottom panel of a fuel pump at a gas station. I worked at a gas station in a roundabout way. Anyways, off the old pumps, it was like the base that covers up all the electronics and the lines and all that. I got quite a few of them sheets. They were like, I don't know, 3 by 5 foot sheets of metal with just a couple holes in them where the nozzle went. And they're perfect for panels like this. And luckily I was able to grab them when we were going to scrap them. And they've worked out well for a couple different things. I believe my fuel pump and regulator, or filter and all that, is also mounted on the same style of metal on the back fuel trunk. Fuel trunk. What the hell's a fuel trunk? I don't know what a fuel trunk is. Trunk area where the fuel tank used to be is what I was going to say there. I don't know if I've ever showed them on here. I don't think I have. I really need to introduce this car on YouTube, I'm realizing now. But the fuel pump and regulator and all that's mounted just on a plate where the fuel tank used to be underneath the car, and then I've got a fuel cell in the trunk. So while we wait on that second coat of powder coat to dry, what I just said gave me an idea. I've never actually introduced this car and what it is exactly. And now I kind of want to do like a more in-depth video on that. So let me give you like a minute rundown on this. This is my 2008 Crown Victoria P71 K9 unit, aka LS Vicci. I know, super original name, right? LS Crown Vic, LS Vicci. Now, how that kind of jokingly started is where the 50 cross banner is now on the windshield. Used to just be bare and covered in dust for like 2.5 years when I was building this. And just one night in the shop, I took my finger and I wrote LS Vicci on there. And for some reason, I spelled it V-I-C-C-I, which is a very odd spelling of Vicci, I know. But then if you Urban Dictionary, that spelling of Vicci, it comes up as like a party girl that loves being the center of attention, causing drama, stuff like that. Which I laughed at because matches old Vicci here perfectly. So it stuck. So LS Vicci got shortened down to Vicci, and that is how that came to be. So what this started as was me being bored and wanting to do more than like dirt bikes and lawnmowers and stuff like that. I'd worked on all that and learned the basic mechanics, and I was watching a bunch of Cletus at the time. And I'm like, this LS stuff looks super easy. They were blowing up engines in Ruby like back to back to back. And they're like, oh, these are Legos. They're super simple, super cheap. So I went and bought a 5.3 off a dude that pulled one from a junkyard. He had a couple of them laying there. Paid $500 for it. Brought it home. Dad's like, what are you going to do with that? And I said, well, I'm going to build it. He goes, what are you going to put in it? I said, I don't know, but I want to put parts in this and see if I can make it run. So I took it down to the block and built everything in. It's just got a cam. It's not bottom end, but new bearing seals, stuff like that. Does have valve springs, different push rods, and then about it. Fuel injectors. On the transmission side, it's got a TCI Turbo 350, full manual valve body unit. It's got a 3000 stall in it, which doesn't fit the cam very well. The cam is way too big for this motor. It is meant for like a 6.2, and it makes its power from like 4 to 7 grand, which is really shitty, but it sounds cool. Which 19-year-old me literally just Googled LS swap cam sounds. That one sounds cool, not realizing they had way bigger motor, way more compression, way better parts. And I'm like, yeah, that's what I want. That's going to do exactly what I need. Haven't swapped it since. It is a fun car. It probably makes like 350, 370 to the wheel, which isn't super impressive, I know, but it is fun. So apart from powertrain, drivetrain there, stock rear end, but it is geared, got 456s in there. Custom drive shaft. It's lifted 3 inches. On the front, it is just like putt spacers on top of the factory struts from Lifter brand. Originally started out on the rear with stock springs and cups. Then went to Expedition or Explorer springs. Look up the 3-inch lift for a bit, and that will show up. I have those in the rear, and then I was running stock Watson like still with just F-150 shocks. Ended up breaking all that at LS Fest a couple years back. Went to a panhard bar setup, and then this year did the 4-link bar setup that y'all have seen since. Have not got to test that yet. Wheels and tires, marketplace deal. They are 33s. They're way too big. 31s are much more practical on a 3-inch lifted Vic. I had to chop a bunch of body and even corners of frame out up here on the cab mount to make those somewhat clear and be able to turn. There's probably a whole bunch more small stuff I'm missing. She's been through a bunch of renditions, been doing a bunch of different stuff. Went from a show car to some burnouts of like Cletus cars and some other smaller shows. Did that for a couple years. Then we went drag racing last year a little bit, testing her hand at that. We're going on a drag drive this year with her. She did 2 seasons of off-road racing with Hoopty Cross, which was super cool. Got the shit beat out of her. She's just road tripped before. She's gone 3-4 hours out of state and road trip for the weekend. She can do that decently, kind of. So yeah, just an all-around learning car. And at this point, apart from pulling the body off the frame of this thing, I have touched every other nut and bolt on this thing. It's got a standalone Holley Terminator in it, so it's all been wired separately. Like, everything has been touched, and it has taught me more than I could ever say on paper, you know? And if I have an idea of something I want to try, like rear end work, or, something I want to try out, I'll try it on this car more than likely. And then hopefully my plan is I can build a lot cooler shit down the road and have experience doing it and look back and say, this was my handbook on how I learned hands-on. Just a quick and dirty rundown on my girl Vicci. I do want to work on a full video of this now of like building it. I've got a bunch of just random clips from had this thing over 6 years now, and I've got a bunch of clips from building it, rebuilding it, crashing it, racing it, stuff like that. And hopefully I can go through and actually edit the video together talking about all that, and then make it look somewhat professional. Who knows, it might be another 2 years before it's out. But here's a quick and dirty on old LS Vicci here. I know we keep jumping around here, but we're finally getting back to stickering this thing. This is just going to be a random video. This was going to be Friday and Saturday, and I have a feeling at this point, with how long this is, it's just going to be Friday, and I will do a whole nother video for y'all on Saturday. Recommendation for one, I already dug through my bag of stickers to find out what I somewhat maybe want to put on here. There's probably too many, that's okay. Always lay these out unstickered first and figure out kind of a pattern. Also, know which ones you definitely want and which ones you can kind of pass up on. So the ones I definitely want: BTR, Redline, Skids for Kids, Holly, Summit, Texas Speed. All these I do have on the car. That kind of what I was getting at with that whole sticker rant was like, I only want stuff that's actually on the car nowadays. Also, figure out which one's going to go top or bottom. Generally, put your big ones on the bottom, and then you can fill in smaller ones, and they'll kind of overlap, but maybe not so much important parts, versus if you lay this down first, and lay this over top, you got a problem. Alright, so here's kind of my final idea, and then the Summit one is hard to do with the sheet, but I think I'm going to use this like medium sized one. You're right above the Texas Speed here. We're not going to put Speedway motors on there, it's just simply too big. However, all of my 4-lane kit is from them, so I do feel kind of bad, but it is what it is. It's not like I'm actually sponsored. I just like putting stickers on stuff. So now you want to go through and take this off backwards, per se, and figure out what you want to put down first. So the BTR and Redline will obviously go down first. Holly can go, actually I might have lied, I'm going to put the BTR over the bottom of the Holly there. So Holly needs to go on the edge and then almost top the red, and then the BTR can lay just over top of it. And then we can put the speed up sign. My own automotive will be last here, will kind of sit center. Texas Speed will sit over red line. Skids for Kids should almost fit in the corner, and then the Summit will go up top here as well. So let's do that. Good morning, folks. It is about 7:30 now on Saturday. Scrapyard opens up in about a half hour, and we got about a 35 minute drive, so should be decent timing. But beautiful morning, a little chilly, about 50 out right now. Much wetter than expected, but hopefully that makes pulling those poles out a hair bit easier as well. Y'all want to see the most exciting cold start ever on this 6-liter? Oh yeah, she's rowdy. You can tell by the completely factory exhaust on this thing. By factory exhaust, I mean completely stopped truck. Anyways, we're gonna go hit the scrapyard, get rid of this, and then go pick up my uncle's tractor. It also sounds like he's just gonna ride along with us and come help with this because he's bored this morning. And then I got to run the tractor back into town anyways by this afternoon. So he said, oh, we might as well just knock it out and run me back in town when we're done. So let's get to it. All right, we got the scrap dropped off, got the tractor picked up. Uncle ended up having some other plans that he went and did. So just me down here, which is fine. However, we've made a very quick discovery on this very first post that I wasn't expecting for some reason. And that is the fact that these are actually concreting in. Now, the reason I didn't think they were is you can move these like a couple inches and watch your ground move around the base there. So I probably should have dug and checked if these were concreting in, but I really didn't think they were based on kind of how loose this fence was. So we got this first one out here, and we're gonna have a lot more backfill dirt to put back in than I thought. We're gonna go ahead and scrape off as much as we can and just have to deal with it. We already got the fence cut down the house, so there's no turning back on this one. But also going to, I was planning on just laying these somewhere in the yard and then either burn them or use some of the good ones down the road. But now I'm gonna have to cut the bases off these and get rid of a bunch of concrete when this is all said and done. With my newfound knowledge of how much more work this is gonna be, I figure I'll go ahead and lay these things out here on the pit bike track doesn't really get used anymore, and also I don't have to mow it because it's mainly dirt. But I guess we'll get them lined up here, and then down the road when I cut all that concrete off, I can go ahead and add to my concrete and block and brick pile and rock pile. Everything other than the bricks you see here, all these rocks and whatnot, actually came out of this pit bike track. It's kind of hard to see now, but found a good home for them up here on Rock Pile Hill, I guess we'll call it. So we'll just go ahead and add concrete to that down the road. But yeah, it kind of sucks. That's going to be a lot more work now. Call me lazy if you want. I may have just come up with a better idea, to be honest with you. It might screw me a couple years down the road, but I figured now knowing that all these are concreting in, I'd give these a little wiggle jiggle and hope to break the dirt up. Well, I tried that with this one and it just snapped the pole right off, but it's like 6 to 8 inches below the dirt level. So I'm thinking we just maybe snap these things off and then fill them back in with dirt. Now the only problem is going to be if this snaps, you know, above the ground. We're going to have a bigger issue because then I won't have anything to hook onto to get it out of the ground. Alright, so far we are 5 for 5. That one is broke, but still standing. But they're all below ground level by at least like 3 to 4 inches. So I think I'm just going to keep on driving ahead here, and this will be done in like 10 minutes. This job went from, okay, this won't be bad, to it's going to be kind of really bad, to it should be pretty simple, but I don't want to jinx myself yet. Alright, so breaking them didn't work for every single one of them, but we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 left. And also these centers are much less concrete. It's just like a couple inches around there, so that's not near as bad either. But yeah, that was way quicker than I thought it was going to be. And there's only one that has a little bit of wood up above the ground, but honestly a mower blade is going to take that right off. now that all the poles are laid out on the ground, go ahead and scoop them all up. And luckily, this works out really well. I actually had forgotten my uncle had got this tractor. He used to have a slightly newer model, but it was a little bit smaller, and he only had a scoop bucket for it. So I went and picked this up, and he asked me, he goes, "Hey, will a manure bucket or a normal bucket work better for what you're doing?" And I thought, actually, this bill, I'd be able to pick all the logs up at one time here instead of a normal bucket. So that worked out super cool. We're going to go ahead and do that, and then start backfilling these holes and try and practice the best we can. I don't have a bunch of fill dirt currently. Actually, I do, but I just got a bunch of dredge on it. So we'll fill these in, put it over later, put the acid back in. But now I just want to get all this out of the yard, put it packed back in, so I can drive over the blower and install the pressure done for now. Well, I'll tell you what, that really opened that yard up more than I thought it was going to. Obviously, I mean, taking the fence out is going to make it look better. But, I don't know, it definitely changed it more than I was expecting it to. For good, I am happy it's out. But now you got guys sitting here questioning how much further do you go, This looks kind of goofy now with this oddball up to the house. I mean, we just have a fence that ends on a hill with no gate, no nothing. But, like I said previously, it gives a sense of, placement, backyard, and like I said, this tree really screws up this yard. They had a bunch of horses and donkeys and a bunch of farm animals. This was all bare dirt when I moved in here about 2.5 years ago, literally up until about where the tractor's at. And then I do believe this used to be a stone driveway going back to a barn, based on a bunch of old aerial maps, which is good because it is hard packed through here. Even though it's grass now, it doesn't get super soggy until you get off the stone path, and then down here obviously is wet because it's downhill. Before I go and making a quick decision, I'm really trying to plan out future what I want. And I say that in a sense of I really hope that someday out here in this area where those trees were, there will be a building of some sort, storage, not probably a shop. It'll probably just be a stone floor storage building. Maybe concrete one day eventually, and put a lift in would be super cool. But honestly, I see more of a shop style building going up by the garage and house down the road. And we're talking, 5, 10, 15 years down the road for both of those buildings. But in the foreseeable future, that's 5 years or so at least, I see this still being the main car parking area. The only reason they don't go up here is A, I'm just trying to grow grass in this corner, and B, this tree does like to drop quite a few decent sized branches, so I don't like parking anything underneath it really. Same reason the camper isn't up there. The camper would go perfectly in that corner. It's pretty level, it's pretty well protected from a lot of stuff, wind and the sun. It's shaded right there for a good part of the day until afternoon time, and then even then the tree provides a lot of cover once it blooms. But pretty much in the last couple years at least, this corner has been my parking area, and then one car sits here as well generally. And I would really like to stone this eventually, up until that post over, and get 4 parking areas that's not on dirt, because it ends up killing all the grass, and then animals get underneath there, and grass grows up. And a couple times throughout the summer I pull everything out and make sure I mow it, but it's definitely a little bit of pain. I'm kind of right in that middle ground of I don't just want to be that guy that parks a bunch of crappy cars all in his yard. So I try and organize them best I can. I try and mow under them best I can. Not that it really matters. I don't have neighbors that directly see any of this. Just kind of a personal pride kind of thing. I'm not to the point where I want to just stack 50 cars in the backyard and let weeds grow up through them yet. But same deal for the random fencing. Originally, this all being closed off worked very, very well because the other side of the barn's closed off as well. And when I would hold races down here on this pit bike track, I could keep people, out of the racetrack area. They would have the view from the outside per se, unless they were in here on a bike racing. Now, of course, that only lasted one summer, so I really don't have a use to close this area off anymore. I come out and ride this track a couple times a year, and that's about it. However, it does make, again, good storage spots in the corners. This is just, random totes I used to store firewood in, garage door needs to go in the barn, some pavers, but it's in a corner, so in my mind it made sense to sit here. If there was no fence here, it would just be in the middle of the yard. So I think for now, before I get too far ahead of myself, I'm just going to call it quits on the fence today. Worst case, if I change my mind down the road, it's nothing but going 25 minutes and putting the tractor up for my uncle. I'm super grateful to have family members that have these. Literally, all three of my uncles have a version of, two of them have deers and one has an old case, but they all work great. One has a tiller. Now we got a manure bucket, a normal bucket blade, and I believe my one uncle even got a mini backhoe attachment for the back of his. I haven't seen it yet, haven't got to use it, but I know it was in the talks a couple months ago about him buying one of those. So I think for right now, we're just going to take the shovel and fill these holes back in the best I can, and then go ahead and drive over them, pack them in a little bit, and then top fill them with dirt later on, and hopefully grass just grows back in, being that it already is pretty well. And then I think while we're here as well, and we have that bucket, I can go ahead and pick up a couple of them big logs that I was going to have to cut up and split, but now I think I'm just going to go throw them right in the fire, and next time we have a fire, it should be an all-nighter. Well, I do believe that is probably either my steering shafts. Man, old FedEx is getting after it. Those are either, hopefully, my steering shafts for Vicci, and or I got some foundation jacks for the house, because we're doing a foundation project next weekend, which I need those too. So that's cool. Those just showed up. Well, we just went ahead and got back from dropping the tractor off back in town. Also went ahead and picked up some propane that was on sale there at work. Had some free lunch going on for a little open house, so you can't beat that. And then I also picked up some gas and diesel in 5-gallon cans. The gas mainly is for the old F-150 here. Figured while it's nice out, we're going to do some work to her. Now, she doesn't need much to be ready to go race at Roush. However, she does have a little misfire going on, which is probably close. It's a 5.4, so, you know, it is what it is. However, also, it's sat for years. The neighbor said it sat for at least 2 or 3 years and ran just a handful of times. So gas that's in here is probably trash. So what we're going to do is go ahead and just throw a whole can of motor treatment in. That's supposed to treat 16 gallons. There are fumes left in this tank. We're going to let it run on that for a while and then throw a gallon or two in it as well. And just let it sit out here and run for a while today and hopefully clear some of that up. I don't know. It was like $5. It's worth a shot, right? Well, I figured this might be a little hard to get into the gas cap without making a mess, but I wasn't expecting. It's got one of them stupid non-gas cap gas caps that just are supposed to push down. And well, this one just does not. So we're going to go get a punch and a hammer and fix that. Now, the backstory on this truck is I bought it from a neighbor of mine who was just going to take it to the scrapyard. And it doesn't have a bunch, like, majorly wrong with it. It's just a bunch of small stuff that made it not good for the road. So he pulled it off the road, just let it sit around the farm for a while, move some stuff around there and whatnot. But I think, realistically, the main issues are either a broken leaf spring on the rear, the actual spring itself, not the hangers. I was concerned it was going to be the hangers, but it's just a spring in the center of the, a 4 or 5 pack, and it's cracked in half. So I'm not too worried about that at all. The front left caliper is pretty much locked completely up, so I think I'm just going to pinch that line off or seal it shut and pull the pads out of the caliper, or just pull the caliper off completely altogether and call it good. See what we can do there. The suspension is completely shot. The manifolds leak like none other. You pretty much have to have the windows down in the truck, otherwise the exhaust leaks into the truck. And, well, that's not super great. Luckily, we generally race in the summer, and if it's wintertime, it's got a good heater. It's got a good working radio and full interior, so she's a good truck. And so that might leave you wondering, well then, Josh, if it's such a good truck, why don't you just use it for off-road? Well, it's a crew cab, it's long, it's low to the ground, and it is rusty. I haven't seen if the frame's got, any cracks or real bad spots, but it's rusty enough. It'd be like if I actually had to work on this, like if I had to put struts on this thing per se. It's one of those jobs that you look at and you're like, oh boy, this is going to be a rough one. And so I don't want to do anything to it. Plus, I put all the work into the Explorer up there to actually be my Ford race car, my off-roader, and that one's much more capable to just go wheel around and whatnot. So this F-150, I'm going to take to Roush, and if it dies first time out, I'm fine with that. If it lives, we'll take it back again, and it is useful around the yard, I'll give it that. I'm going to use it today to pick up the rest of that wood more than likely here in a little bit. But off-road wise, I got a feeling the Explorer is going to be much more capable and more fun. I'll get a little cold start in on her. It's not really cold, it's like 55 out right now. But she ain't been starting in a couple months at least. Oh yeah. She actually runs very well. And like I said, the interior, it's dirty, don't get me wrong. But the seats, well, they have covers up here. But center console's not all tore up. Dash is in good shape. Got all the options. We got CD players. We got an off sport. We got cigarette lighter. Is that a cigarette? Oh, it is. Cigarette lighter? Almost looked like a knob at first, I'll be honest. I haven't really like looked through this truck. We got some change and safety glasses. I mean, we're practically making our money back here on this thing already. And up front in the power bench, she honestly is running very smooth, and other than the slight exhaust leak we got going on, it's not bad. We got the F-150 project button up, got some air in the tires. Went ahead and picked all the wood up that was left out front, stacked that up in my wood pile. She's running okay, is the best I'll put. So now it's time to move on to my sleeping arrangements for Roush World, and then we'll be back at Silver Lake the weekend after that. We got a drag and drive to do with this thing. Trip to Kentucky, and then hopefully also Ford Fest, LS Fest maybe, but at least Ford Fest should be camping in this. Got quite a few endeavors with this thing, and she's still not weight free. So this gem right here is my 1975 Caribou camper that I haul around and have used a handful of times, but she was much rougher than I expected when I first bought it. Last year I went ahead and sealed the roof on it, fixed a whole bunch of issues up on there. So the roof itself is sealed, and I also rebuilt the bunk area, reframed the floor and the top here. Need to finish the insulation and paneling back in there again. But we still have a bunch of other leaks, like for one, this window leaks on heavy storms and runs all down this door, which is not super cool. All our spots is pretty much like all of the corner trim here is not sealed. Last year I went through and I think I did like this side, re-siliconed everything, and then like the whole edge of this is kind of, coming apart. She's kind of, not super great. We got some screws in here, we got some silicone, but the wood behind it is not in the best shape. So we're doing what we can. We also have a bunch of buds on the side right now for some reason, which is not cool. But this side is all sealed up. The windows and all that are all silicone, but I never did the back or the driver's side. And so what we're working on now is pretty much all the base here. I want to paint this wood. This is just plywood, and it's got a bunch of old paint on here, and it's not sealed by any means. So when this gets wet, it just soaks into this wood. And I also never noticed until last year that this little slot right here is actually just paneling inside. This is just like inside trim paneling. It's not even OSB plywood. So somebody took the time to seal around this, but never put a patch panel over this. So we're going to build patch panels through these, and then this side over here isn't as bad, at least that I can see. Somebody has already done the work that I was going to do. I'll probably still put some wood back here, because again, this is just paneling, like layered paneling. There's no actual wood out here. So that needs fixed before we paint this. So I'm going to make some patch panels there, seal this up, and also paint everything. And then the underside as well, we're just not going to pay attention to. We're missing like the edge rail here. We should probably shove something in there. Maybe it's spandrel foam. And this side is definitely the worst as far as like most missing material. I did take that panel right there off. I was covering this up, but like somebody went through and put new wood on here and then repaneled the inside. But the original framework, I'm assuming this is original wood anyways, is just gone. So what we just went ahead and did was knocked out all the loose stuff I can find, and we're gonna lay one big panel in here and tuck it down to this what's left of the original frame, and then one back here as well, and toenail in here, and then hopefully just seal the piss out of this, and hopefully it'll last a couple more years. Now, is that the right way of fixing this? Probably not. Is it gonna make it more leak-free than what it currently is? Yes, and really that's all we're going for. I mean, at this point, it's a 50-year-old camper. You can't expect perfect. And also, I've learned something, even brand new campers, every camper is going to leak at some point. It's just a matter of if and when, and if you don't maintain it. And this one obviously wasn't maintained. It's also my first one I bought, so I didn't know exactly what to look for. They did a very, very good job of hiding all the water damage inside and just covering everything up. I didn't realize that until after I bought it. We just got done cutting out our last patch panel here. And one thing I want to point out when you're working on something like this, at least for me, I feel like so many people get caught up in like having to have everything perfect, and they would take forever to do this project. Not saying I've not put this off, but they would look at this and be like, oh, I need all this perfectly cut wood and this trim and the right sealer and the right paint. It needs sanded properly. I can guarantee you any amount of effort you put into this, even if it's not quite the right way, new wood, some silicone, and paint is going to be 100 times better than leaking water. Is it going to look perfect? Is everything perfectly replaced? Probably not. But it gets the job done and gets you done on schedule. And like I said, as long as you're keeping water out, it's kind of the biggest thing on this project in particular. But you can take that and apply it to other things. Like everything you do, especially if it's not something you do every day or it's the first time you're doing it, it's not going to be perfect. Just make it better than it was. On that corner there, we just had to do the batt section, and I used a couple corner braces. Get tied into the side and then tied the outside into that new piece. This side over here, about the same deal, but the inner wood was worse, obviously. But pretty tight gaps. We'll go ahead and silicone all them up once we're all said and done. Inside gap's pretty tight. The biggest thing is any water or anything going down the road is going to be coming this way, so you want to make sure this is probably your most protected. Really, up underneath here shouldn't ever get super wet, especially sitting on a stand. And then the truck bed comes up here and sits like here, so there's really not a bunch of water intrusion per se that's going to happen here. Kept the outside factory board, I guess. We'll go ahead and sand all that old black paint off there, or at least as much as I can. And then this last piece here is for this guy here. Got about an inch of overhang all the way around. Go ahead and get that screwed in. And right here you can take a perfect example of what I was saying. The proper way to, have a flush side, how you probably should, would have been to take all this old sealant out of here, knock all this out, get a perfectly cut piece of wood, slide in there, make sure you have all your gaps filled, and then paint everything. Versus, you can take literally a quarter of the time, probably less actually. Took a minute to measure and cut this, and just go an inch over, screw it to it, and make sure you have a good seal around the outside. Instead of trying to seal all this up inside of here, and then you'll have water sit in this cavity, it's just not worth it for what we're working on. Well, the guy got all his patch panels he wanted done on the camper, and I was hoping to get it sanded yet tonight, but, well, based on my calculations of the sun and the moon and the stars, I'm going to be out of daylight here before that happens. So instead, I got a bunch of cardboard piling up, and it's getting in the way in the garage. I figured we'll go ahead and have a fire, and I got a couple different stick piles around here to also clean up on my property, and then that will pretty much finish up my spring cleaning on the outside. Yeah, go ahead and get rid of that, see what else we can find around here to burn. I'm sure I'll find more shit. And once the sun goes down and the day is officially finished, probably head on back to the garage and get working on Vicci again. Well, good morning. Back out here Sunday morning, back on the camper project here. Really want to get this finished up this weekend and then get back to the car because it's just got a couple minimal things. So the big goals today are to go ahead and get this sanded, painted, hopefully maybe even 2 coats of paint. While that's drying, we gotta finish up mowing the backyard. I gave up on that last week. It was like 40 out, and I got all my front yard done. You can see from the road, and I thought, I'll get to that later. Well, now later, backyard's a hayfield, so you can get around to mowing that as well today, and then hopefully warm up a little bit and get some silicone on this as well on all sides. It's only about 55 right now here this morning, but it's supposed to be a high of almost 80 today, so give it a couple hours, hopefully it'll warm up a bit, lose a nice flannel, and get the paint and all this. So let's get to it. All we got is a little orbital and some 220. Hopefully I'll scuff this up enough, paint will soak right into this wood. And I'm hoping, actually, it doesn't soak in too much. I'm hoping 2 coats covers this black up pretty well, and that it doesn't halfway show through white paint. This will all be white down here. No specific reason for that change, other than the store I was at was out of black paint, so I went with white, which matches the rest of the camper anyways, but it kind of blended in with my truck, because my truck's black, and that sat below the bed, so it is what it is. As long as it's covered up, I don't really care. Alright, I apologize if there's a bunch of wind in this. Worst case, I'll voice over this. But here is the finished camper project. We have 4 coats of paint on there, 2 of which I brushed on very, very thick, and then the last 2 I rolled on all the big flat spots and then just brushed the corners. But I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. Matches pretty well. It's pretty well even. There's a couple spotchy spots, but I'm tired of painting it. I started this at like 10:30 this morning on the sanding side of this, and then have been out here since, and it's now after 6. Apart from just a couple of breaks in between there, it's been an all-day project, longer than I thought it was going to be. So yeah, overall, like I said, super happy actually with how the white turned out. I think it's going to look a lot better in black down here, even though it doesn't match my truck. But it definitely brings the camper together a little more. Eventually, I would like to actually paint this again. I'd probably keep the same paint scheme because it matches my Vicci pretty well. But there's a lot of flakiness on sides here and there. And also, it's just dirty. A lot of, just mildew that actually comes off with window cleaner when I was doing all this. This all comes off pretty easily. But I've never actually washed this thing in the 2 years I've owned it now. So we'll give this thing a couple days to dry, and then we'll go back through the big gaps and corners in silicone. I figured it was better to paint it and then silicone on top of paint than it would have been trying to stick silicone to bare wood and paint over that. I don't know if that's right or wrong, but that's about all we got left to do. However, there is a chance of rain almost every day this week, so it might be next weekend before we get back to this. We'll see. Obviously, you can't apply that stuff in the rain and or when it's got rain shortly after. I will say, by doing this camper project right beside this little lean-to building, it has made me notice how many other paint projects around my property I have, like all these window frames and whatnot that are missing a lot of paint. Even the siding itself is starting to flake off. So this whole thing, really does need the same process as what I did here. Hopefully not 4 coats. I did a little test spot here. This was just one little quick pass, and it seemed to cover pretty well. So put that on the list for summer. Also, like some window frames, door frames, and whatnot around my house that need done in the same way. So I know y'all don't like seeing that probably. It's supposed to be more of an automotive page than home improvement projects, but I figured the camper is fitting because it goes to a lot of automotive events with me. So I figured I'll show y'all the restoration project over. And so I think with that, we're going to go ahead and end the video off here. I was really hoping to get back to Vicci this afternoon and get steering shafts in. They did show up yesterday, and I just haven't got back to working on her yet because my main goal of the weekend was to get that camper done, which I'm super glad it is. It is back in usable condition. It can go in my truck, and technically everything else it needs done I can do while it's in the truck bed if need be. But we're going to go ahead and get some dinner. I haven't ate yet today. Kind of forgot to do that. So we're going to do that. Come back out here, get all these tools cleaned up so again the week isn't a mess right off the bat, and then get this video done up. And then if I get all that done, I might come back out here and work on Vicci. But I got a feeling that's going to be a hot minute because this has been 3 days now, and this will be like my first 3-day stretch of a video, trying to combine it all in once here. So anyways, with that, we will see you on the next one. Hopefully you enjoyed a little bit of everything going on this weekend, and we'll be back up at Roush here before too long, if not doing something on Vicci before then. So we'll see you on the next one.